AFRICA, Angola, Soweto, Zimbabwe, Tanzania, Zambia, Mozambique, and Botswana. So let us speak about the motherland of renegade culture.
Hey yo, shout out to the band called Stet. The first hip hop band.
No doubt.
You know what I'm saying? And I love the Roots because the Roots is the shit. And they the greatest motherfucking band ever. You know what I'm saying? But definitely Stetson Sonic is one of the dopest bands. We the band called Stet, and we on
fire.
Yo, was you supposed to be in a video or something?
Big up to my man Daddy-O.
Shout out to Daddy-O, who's living here in Atlanta.
All
the
right.
brother called me one time. He said, yo, Kalanji, bring your crew out to this video shoot. I want you to be in the video. I said, word? He said, yeah. I'm like, oh shit. Daddy-O from the band called Stet. Because when you talk about Daddy-O, Daddy-O produced Blondie and a number of other different people. He
Mary
wasn't
J.
just
Blige, Biggie.
Mary J. Blige,
Yeah.
Biggie, the whole nine. He just wasn't with Stetson Sonic, so he invited me out, and I was like, shit, that's dope. So I said, what's the particulars? He said, okay, we're gonna be meeting at the such and such cemetery in Atlanta at 4 o'clock in the morning. I said, 4 o'clock in the morning? I said, Daddy-O, is you high? He said, nah, we're gonna be shooting a video at 4 o'clock in the morning. I said, okay, I'm gonna talk to the crew and see what they talking about. So I text Balagoon and the crew, shout out to FTP movement, all the CI fools, and they laughed like a motherfucker. They wasn't even goddamn. So
What year was this?
This had to be about 3 years ago.
Oh,
right
wow.
about before we started working together, maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay.
Still putting out
So-
music, huh?
I was gonna say, like, I wouldn't have shown up to that anyway. No matter
Man.
what. I could have been at 4 o'clock in the afternoon
Daddy-O's
in the
still making
mall.
dope music. Daddy-O's doper now than he was. That's
Listen,
Really?
but with all due respect, and I like Daddy-O and shit, you know what I'm saying? With all due respect, when the video did come out, I was kind of feeling the way. I'm like, man, should I have been on? I could have been on this classic video, whatever, so on and so forth. But I didn't. And I'm glad I didn't because of the fact at the end of the video it said all lives matter. So I'd have been mad at him more for you put me in the video and say all lives matter.
Daddy
Because for
fraud.
me, there's some bullshit.
Daddy fraud. Speaking of which, what's your name, son?
My name is Kalanji Jamachenga, aka the Riot Starter, and I host several shows on Black Power Media, including
We'll do all that
Renegade
shit, man.
Culture,
I'm supposed to be switched
The
to me.
Remix,
Switch to me.
and also Riot Starter TV.
Not a free
And I'm
commercial.
here live with my man, my main man.
Come on, okay, Franklin, let me just interrupt this dude who's gonna talk forever and shit like that.
Chief
We need to get this
Longwood.
show morning, and you know what I'm saying? Let's keep it going. Who we got behind us? We got?
I go by the name of the Ear Doctor. Yes.
And transmitting live out your minister server along with
High in the building.
Now, ladies and
So
gentlemen,
high.
we are praying, we are hoping that this particular take has been recorded.
Dope.
Here you go.
God damn.
Ain't no telling.
Make sure
We don't
that you
know,
push
we
all
don't
the
know.
buttons.
Shout out to Playback
Buttons
Sound
push.
Studios where we are right now. Clearly you can tell they got this big ass banner on the side of us. You know what I'm saying?
Let's see if that gets in there.
I mean, every time. It's like,
You know
how
what
we
I'm
get closer and closer and closer.
Don't
We
get too
here
close,
now.
B. Yo, so our special show tonight, our guest is Dr. Jared Ball.
Dr. Jared Ball.
Dr. Jared Ball is going to be on tonight, man. Dr. Jared Ball has been on more times than anybody else ever. He
Listen.
holds the record. He might as well just be a co-host by now. and shit
Dr.
like
Jared
that.
Ball has been on damn near as many times as Minister Serving the Ear Doctor.
I think so. I think he contributes more than they do, so you know he should.
Oh, boom, boom, boom.
And our musical guest is server.
Yo, we got Jawz of Life coming through. The living legend.
Shout out to Jawz of Life.
Yes.
And as we do every week, yo, we got hit off with some new Patreons.
Okay.
Who are the folks that gave us some resources this
Who love
week?
us?
All right, let's do it like this, server. We got Zachary Ferguson.
We got a
Fucked
side
up
of
person.
Madison.
Go ahead. Keep going.
Zachary Ferguson.
A side of Madison.
And we got Pushing for Change.
Ursula.
We got Darren Utley.
We got Jabari Jabbar.
We got Daniel Mays.
We got Devin B.
We got Mariam Sadi.
We got Eugenia.
We got Sai Ali.
We got Volti.
And we got
Brian
Brian
Sunstein.
Oh, thank you,
Okay.
Patreon.
Yeah.
Now,
Big up to all the Patreons.
to all the
Yes,
Patreons
yes.
out there, I know for a fact that at least 7 of y'all got your name fucked up when these cats announced it.
Not at all. We did
However,
it perfect.
it is the love. Thank you.
Thank
did
you.
it perfect.
Thank you
very
so much.
Yo, in tonight's show, we're gonna be talking about Malcolm. You know, this show airs is like 2 days away from Malcolm's birthday. His birthday had just passed. So we're gonna talk about
96th birthday.
96th birthday. So we're gonna be talking about Malcolm, his influence, our political hip hop in the 90s, and what brought Malcolm back up to be the person he is to all of us today. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about the trends today and all the politics that are going down when we get back here with Renegade Culture. Boom.
Boom.
sad the Renegade coaches in the building.
Yo, we back.
And yeah, I just need to let y'all know one motherfucking thing.
All right.
This is my house. When I say who house, y'all know what time it is. Whose house?
Renegade culture.
Okay, that's what I'm talking about. We together. Look at this cat right here, ready to hate on us.
I don't know what the fuck is happening right now.
We got our petty brother on the joint today.
Petty Betty on the house, you know what I'm saying? Dr. Jared Ball. How you doing, Dr. Jared?
I'm as good as could be expected and better to be on Renegade Culture. What's up, good people?
No doubt.
We good.
Hey, yo, Jay, man, listen, man. Can I call you Jay, sir? I mean, I know you Dr. Jared Ball to the masses.
I like I say, I only want people to remember the doctor because I'm still paying for it.
Okay, they ain't got shit to do with me. I ain't.
Nah, so Jay is good. That's it.
I ain't take none of your classes. But listen, on the real, man, it's always.
And it shows.
True. True.
That was a good one. That was a good one.
That's called a left jab.
That's definitely a left jab. Shout out to our man, Jared Ball. Always good to have you on the show, even though it feels like we all live together and shit, because we got the motherfucking remix. When we're not on each other's shows, Jared's like, yo, y'all want to get on this show?
On the show, yeah.
So it's like every day we see you. But anyway, definitely good to have you on. Shout out to I Mix What I Like, you know what I'm saying, one of our favorite shows.
One of our favorites of all time.
And we've been fans, I can speak for myself. I've been a fan of I Mix What I Like for at least 2 days.
2 days.
Nah,
I was about to say, name an episode.
Name an episode. Was it so-and-so on there?
Going all the way back on the real, though, we always respect I Mix What I Like. Anyway, man, glad to have you on, man. We're here to talk about El Hajj Malik Shabazz tonight. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
No doubt. So, you know what I'm saying? We talking about El Hajj Malik Shabazz. On the show, we know that, you know what I'm saying, we know that a lot of folks associate you with Al B. Shore, and they associate my man with El DeBarge. So we got El Shabazz, El DeBarge, and Al B. Shore. But anyway, what's happening, man? Let's talk about some
Malcolm X. Okay.
No doubt.
So, you know, part of what we wanted to talk about is we all, because of our ages, right? I mean, we probably discovered Malcolm in the 80s and the 90s, and some of it might have been during that era when Malcolm got repopularized, right? And some people, obviously a lot of folks discovered Malcolm during that time period because of the mass entertainment. Some of us might have stuck in there a little bit beforehand, but that mass entertainment really sort of brought it to a new light. So, I mean, the first thing I wanted to sort of get from you was, like, you know, how did you first discover, like, Malcolm and started reading Malcolm?
Well, the very first introduction was actually seeing the autobiography and maybe one or another book of speeches on my mother's bookshelf as a child. But I just didn't know, you know, I mean, it was just another book. It didn't, you know, but it wasn't until I was in the military and I heard that Spike Lee's movie was coming out that it kicked in. And it said, and I thought, I remember thinking vividly at the time, I remember the book. I obviously have heard about Malcolm. I understand he's important. He's a good guy, you know, but I cannot let Spike's movie be, like, I can't have that be my real introduction. So I quickly, you know, got a copy of the autobiography, started devouring it. And then, like we've talked about elsewhere, got all the I think it's the George Brightman books, the Pathfinder books and all that was popular at the time. And it was just off and running. And at least that part was right, because by the time I actually saw Spike's movie, I was like, oh Lord, have mercy, you know. So.
Word. So what did Malcolm mean to you? Because of the fact that I think that that's a question that we should pose to all of us. But like for you, the impact of Malcolm, we're talking about this being his 96 born date. You know what I mean? A couple days ago, him being a man that pretty much, as we talked about on the Remix Morning Show, shout out to the Remix Morning Show crew. One of the things we talked about was the fact that, for all practical purposes, Malcolm was Malcolm for about 12 years of his life, as far as the Malcolm that we know. As Detroit Red, he was more Detroit Red for the majority of his life. So what did Malcolm mean to you, and what was the impact of a Malcolm X or El Hajj Malik Shabazz?
Well, I mean, I think in this regard, I think my story sounds a lot like a lot of our stories. Unfortunately, in regard to, I was looking for a replacement for my father. I was looking for some sort of manhood. You know, up until that point, James Evans, I always talk about like that was my pop cultural guiding light for black manhood and fatherhood. So, you know, so understand again how important Malcolm was just in terms of the ether of just growing up and just, you know, being a lot, you know, around, seeing just what we've all seen, seeing the transformation that he goes through, the evolving politics, going from somebody who on some level or another represented a lot of us, whether we went in all the way into you know, what was, you know, the so-called criminal activity or whatever or not, we could all at least recognize sort of that I wasn't always radical. I was just a regular kid. I was a regular, you know, young man. And then all of a sudden, if he can evolve into this, you know, I mean, it was just that simple. And then I mean, I admit a lot of little things too. Like when I remember reading that he was a member of the Blue Vein Society. And I remember looking at my arm and seeing, I could see the blue vein in my arm and feel like, well, you know, shoot it. You know, I mean, if Malcolm, you know, could be in that and I could, you know, then, you know, in other words, it gave me a lot of confidence in terms of just dealing with all the other things about complexion or identity, manhood. If like, again, if Malcolm can go through these evolutions, and be down and be part of the struggle, then certainly so can I. At least have that to, you know, to aspire to. And but then lastly, just he spoke to this sort of, I don't know what, you know, that anger that I still think is underappreciated, that I still have. Like I hear it in his voice, I read it in his speeches. You know, I don't like what's going on, and I want to, you know, politically smack something in the mouth if we need to move forward. That's how I felt and that's how I feel. And Malcolm spoke to all of that and then gave all the details, the analysis, the intellectualism, the humor. I mean, you know, all of that stuff. I mean, he had everything. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that was it.
At the risk of sounding sacrilegious, I would say that if there were to be another holy book in the next 2,000 years, then Malcolm would be a prophet to many of us. You know what I mean? To Africans in America and abroad. I think that his works and his miracles, for lack of better words, you know what I mean, has been so tremendous and such a devastatingly effective impact on us. Because I think when we talk about, especially brothers like us from our era, when we talk about Malcolm, or we talk about El-Haj, Malik Shabazz, Omar Wali, we talk about this young man because of the fact that, keeping in mind, he was 39 years old when he was assassinated. When we talk about this individual, we talk about him in a prophetic type of speech or talk. And I'm really, it's amazing because like when I talk to you and Kamal and just different brothers and sisters throughout, you know, our movement, it's like it's a spiritual thing. You know what I'm saying? Don't fuck with Malcolm. When I see people online talking crazy about Malcolm is like talking shit about my mother.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Malcolm is like the patron saint, I think, for a lot of folks.
Without a doubt.
For like black nationalism again, it's one of those things where Malcolm is represented. I don't care if you were civil rights or human rights, particularly post his assassination and the flowering of the autobiography and the speeches, where it became, no matter what you said, you couldn't say something bad about Malcolm. I remember reading The Crisis of the Negro Intellectual, Howard Cruz's book. He disses every fucking body. Everybody gets slammed by Howard Cruz, particularly if you have West Indian origins, right? Everybody gets slammed. Malcolm was the only person that he wrote a little pithy couple of paragraphs about him, and that was, you know, when that book was one of those books that you had to read if you was going to be a serious radical or revolutionary, even during our times. It's probably like 15 years old, but you know, he couldn't say nothing bad about Malcolm. And I was going to say too, when I got politicized during that same time period, it was the speeches and the autobiography. It was like taken away. I had the buttons on my backpack. I had a button on my belt. I had the t-shirt on. I dared anybody to say anything to me. The first time I went to a strip club I was like, I know how I'm gonna weave this in about Malcolm, right? I was 20 years old.
About that part.
I was like 19, 20 years old. My boys was going like, let's go to a strip club. I went to a strip club. I forgot I had a Malcolm button on. I almost didn't go in. I was like, wait a minute. I got a Malcolm. I can't go in the strip
like
club.
having the cross on.
Yeah, I was like, I can't go in. I had to take the button off. I had to find a good place to put it. I think I went back to a car, put it under a seat. I was like, Malcolm can't see me go in here or whatever like that. But it was like that kind of thing. I stopped cursing for a while. You know, I did, like a lot of us too. Like I checked out the Nation of Islam. I went to the Nation of Islam's temple in Harlem. I think my masjid number 25, if I'm remembering correctly.
Number 7.
Number 7. I'm sorry. Yeah,
Yes,
thank you.
brother.
Number 7. And I think, you know, even then I knew I was somewhat of an atheist, but I still wanted to check it out. And the thing that stopped me from joining, even at that point, was like when I walked in, they were still talking shit about Malcolm, even at that time. And that was, at that time, that was like, you know, 20 years post his assassination or whatever. So all that, you know, during that time period, you see the movie, X-Clan, all the hip hop artists like doing Malcolm videos and centering Malcolm on it. All that stuff just made that sort of reemergence of Malcolm for all of us at that time period.
Yeah.
And it made us all want to celebrate and be like Malcolm in our tone, our talk, and our politics.
I want to say that in like 04, I believe, I wrote Malcolm Shabazz, Rise in Power. Malcolm Shabazz was, for those who don't know, Malcolm's grandson. And he was the only male heir. And I wrote him, he was locked up. And I know that he was locked up with Chancellor Williams' grandson, because we was writing all different political prisoners, so on and so forth.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And I remember there was a situation where there was a little bit of beef that had stirred between the two because they didn't know who each other were, and they was across the cell from each other. But I remember writing him, and I remember I got the letter, a response back from him, and I remember we was at Chairman Fred Jr., myself, and we was at Kamel Bell and Russell Schultz crib. They had a brownstone in Brooklyn.
And the folks who don't know, Kamel Bell is the son of Herman Bell, who
Yes.
was a political prisoner and ex-Black Panther Party member in BLA.
And Russell Schultz, the third, is the son of Russell Schultz, who's also a who's also a political prisoner.
Yeah.
So we was chilling at their crib, and I pulled a letter out, and I was showing Fred, and I told him, you know, I told Malcolm we was there together, so on and so forth. So I believe that was his introduction to our movement because of the fact that at the time, I know that he was trying to be a 5%er, a blood, and so many other things or whatever. And what I'm saying could be documented. So I know some of y'all are like, oh, how could you say that? It's actual facts.
Yeah.
You know, he was a young man who was assassinated himself at age 27. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, I'm saying all that to say that as a reminder, when you jump into this movement, your offspring are also enemies to the state because the state doesn't forgive anything and anyone. It's sort of like the, you know, with the Jews from the Holocaust and the Nazi experience. It's like they don't care if you're 182 years old and you forgot your fucking name. If they find out that you were a soldier working on behalf of the Nazis, they will drag your ass up out the house and they will take you back to wherever the fuck you need to because of the fact that you are considered a war criminal. Now with us, as far as Africans in America or at home or abroad, we are forgiving people. Now I know a lot of people say, well, you know, Zimmerman's still walking around and I don't understand how y'all let Zimmerman walk around. You got motherfuckers in your neighborhood that walk around and committed certain atrocities. So until we can have accountability on behalf of each other, then we can say, okay, boom, we're trying to be like Malcolm because of the fact that Malcolm was about accountability. He went from Detroit Red and then he evolved to El Hajj Malik Shabazz. You listen to Renegade Culture.
And when we come back, we're going to go a little bit deeper into the 90s and hip hop because I think a lot of us also got politicized during that time, not just off of Malcolm, but off the KRS-Ones, the Public Enemies, and other folks who started showing up. Poor Righteous Teachers, yeah.
Lakim Shabazz.
So we're going to do all that when we get back on Renegade Culture.
Folks, you heard.
The N, the E, the G, the A, the D, the E is Renegade.
Ding dong.
Renegade Culture.
Yeah. I need a petty shirt like Jared Ball.
We all do. We all do. We all need a petty
That
shirt.
cat right there, he petty. Petty Pendergrass.
Petty Pendergrass.
Petty Griffin.
He got the red, white, and blue on even and shit
Yeah,
like
he
that.
fucking
You know
up
what I'm
the
saying?
red,
Show out
white,
petty,
blue.
you know what I'm saying?
That's my nigga. I understand.
Petty Bright.
Petty Albright.
Petty Albright.
All good, man.
All right,
Petty
Justin, let's
Albright.
get back into it.
Yes.
We was talking about all things Malcolm, particularly Malcolm, about us getting politicized back in the 80s and 90s around Malcolm, and then the resurgence that happened during that time period. Now, y'all, you know,
We should open up to our producers as well.
we should let them join in on this because they're old enough to remember, except for Ja. Ja was wearing his titty shirts as a baby. I think
Ja
back
was in
then.
a strip club.
He was like this.
He's like, we'll always love Big Ja. But anyway, go ahead.
All right, so sorry about that, Ja. So like 80s, 90s, hip hop. Who'd y'all listen to? Who are the political rappers y'all listen to that really sort of opened up your minds to some politics? Start with you, bro.
Well, obviously, the first one that when Boogie Down Productions dropped the video and it had the big picture, it was black and white, had the pictures of Malcolm up there. I think that's the first time a lot of us even saw those pictures of Malcolm. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes when we look at the political side, Public Enemy, Boogie Down Productions, just the imagery.
Yeah.
Malcolm, as you said, was already like our patron saint anyway in that. So it had a huge influence, and that was before the industry kind of came in and took over. So it was really politicized during that time where you almost had to kind of be like a son or daughter of Malcolm during that time. You know what I'm saying?
On the real.
Yeah. Who's your influence?
I would have to say Poor Righteous Teachers, KRS-One, all the 5%ers, they all had the medallions and X's and stuff. But then at the same time, it had to be the Malcolm X movie too, because a lot of people was talking about it, going to it, and then you went to go see it, and you was like, oh shit. That's what gave you a little thing, and it's just like Jared said before he went to see the movie, he read the book. I seen the movie and then read the book. So for me, that's what it was.
Jai High, my man Mamelo. Get
you
on the
a-
mic because you know you eat jello.
Were you alive, sir? Were you alive?
Of course, man. Man, if I had to say Jay-Z, man, has been my political reference with the 444 album. I know I'm a little late to the game, but that was an album.
The 444 album?
Yeah, let me explain.
Yeah.
The 444 album was the first album that he had that I felt like was relative towards me at the age that I was.
True.
Growing up and trying to become a man, what I consider lavish a lifestyle. You know what I'm saying? My goals and ambitions. So shout out to Jay-Z and 444.
All right, yeah, that's right.
I know that was coming.
Who's your favorite?
So, shit, fuck me up. Oh, I know he said Malcolm or Jay-Z. Shout out to my man Jai High. Hey, definitely high. But anyway, Malcolm,
yours?
I mean, as far as like
The music. Who's the music for you that was
think
political?
I mean, we come from the same era. So, again, we talk about Public Enemy with Do the Right Thing with, I mean, that fight the power shit.
Yeah.
Every fucking thing. To me, two of the greatest, my three favorite hip hop videos would be Fight the Power. The second one would be Self-Destruction. And the third one would be the Rhapsody Alpha, Fuck What You Heard. You know what I'm saying?
Classic.
Nobody else wants to say
Somebody
it.
said classic?
In the spirit of
Goddamn right,
Malcolm.
it's
Brother
classic.
Jared,
Classic.
who's your main hip hop influences?
I mean, obviously, Public Enemy, Poor Righteous Teachers, X-Clan. I mean, got to shout out X-Clan for sure. The BDP, with not only what Minister Server was talking about, but when if I'm not mistaken, it's a separate album where KRS did the replica of the Malcolm at the window.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Yeah. The By Any Means, So that for sure. And a little bit later into the 90s, shout out to Paris on the West Coast. Also too.
The Black Panther hip hop.
Yeah. So, and then also like, the early native tongues, the original Jungle Brothers.
Absolutely. Yes.
There's that, I can never remember what track it was, but there's that De La track where they literally take off the gold ropes and put on the African medallions on somebody in the video.
Yeah.
So all of that, the original
Ladies
Queen
First.
Latifah.
Yeah.
I mean, that really, that video, Ladies First, as a video, people should go back and watch that and then look at where she is today and they'll see, I have to say, shout out to Ja High, and I respect that whatever can get you where you got to get is good, but Jay-Z's 444 is the antithesis of Malcolm X. I mean, it is.
Hey, my man.
Whatever we got to do to get there.
As long as he got there.
Aw.
But listen,
Wait,
he a renegade culture today.
Before you say that, though, his head just sunk down in his chest. Let me just let you know that.
What happened?
His head just sunk down in his chest after you said that.
don't do that.
I want to say something real quick, man. Our own Minister Servant, when you talk about KRS-One, he's on KRS-One's album. He used to roll with. Yes, he is. What album was that?
What album?
Keep Right. 5 songs. Don't front.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that, son.
5 songs on Keep Right, KRS-One's album.
Wow.
Minister Server, our own Minister Server's on his album. He was the minister of the Temple of Hip Hop, you know what I'm saying, with KRS-One. And I also want to shout out my man, when you talk about Poor Righteous Teachers, our man Wise Intelligent, who's been on the show.
Definitely.
But my man Balogun Ojatade and myself, we actually produced one of the videos for Wise Intelligent and Diaspora Black out of DC. So we have some hip hop history around here. A lot of folks, and I'm saying that about Minister Server because of the fact that oftentimes, you know, we go into our clown and he's humble enough to join us on Renegade Culture, but he definitely was the minister of hip hop for the Temple, the minister for the Temple of Hip Hop. He's an ordained minister. And, you know, one of his joints, Food for the Spirit is a classic here in Atlanta. So I just wanted to shout out our guy.
So shout out to him for that. My apologies for not knowing more about that, and I would love to hear more about that. Has that story been told? Have you all laid that story out somewhere that I haven't seen?
We haven't. In fact, Server stopped me and KRS-One from getting into a motherfucking
Jerry, that's a classic story. We got to tell that on air.
possible altercation.
Look, I believe that. Look, I've met KRS in person. KRS is a brilliant brother, but I can see how that could go. I can see how that could go.
Well, I had to tell him to his face, like, fuck his philosophies. But that's another story. And I'm a fan of KRS-One on the hip hop tip, and I told him that as well. But I told him with that philosophy shit, can't fuck with you. You know what I mean? But anyway,
I was gonna say quickly, like when I was in my 20s in the projects, X-Clan. I remember the other stuff too. But I remember X-Clan for some reason. They had the thing that the album, and you could write a letter to be part of X-Clan to join Black Watch, to join their movement
in Brooklyn.
So
I wrote. I didn't join. I don't know if they even wrote back, but again, I was so earnest. I wrote me a little letter to them. I tried to get to be a join, and I later on joined another organization called Black Near Force. And then we had this whole meeting. They came to the meeting.
Black Near Force.
Yeah, with Raz Baraka when he was political.
Yes.
Shots
fired. Blackout. Shout out to Amiri. You know what I'm saying?
Shots fired at
So
Ross.
we had a meeting, and you know, I was doing security. I was doing my posting. But it was like they came in the room, and it was like, for me, it was like it was almost like some star shit. It was like, yo, it's X-Clan, and they had on the hats and all that kind of shit. So they sat in the audience, and some dude was sitting behind one of them, and he said, sister, can you move your hat? And she turned around, she said, brother, it's a crown. It was like, oh, there might be some beef up in here.
Right, but speaking of X-Clan, we cannot forget Sonny Carson,
That's
who's
right.
the father
Right.
of Lumumba Carson,
That's
who
right.
was
Professor X.
Professor X.
X.
And
That's right.
speaking of that as well, before we begin this recording,
Word.
I'm going to the bathroom, and my man Minister Service is like, yo, Paradise want to speak to you. You know what I mean? So shout out to Paradise from X-Clan, you know
Shout
what I mean,
out to
for
Paradise
supporting
for
the whole
sure.
movement as well. So anyway, hip-hop history's in the building. That's what we do around this motherfucking Renegade Culture. Don't get it twisted.
Yeah, because today it was actually the groundbreaking for the Universal Hip Hop Museum up in the Bronx. Yeah. So my man Paradise Gray, LL Cool J, Nas, Fat Joe, Grandmaster Flash. It was a who's who
Slick
up
Rick.
in the Bronx. Slick Rick up there looking like Slick Rick. It was a who's who up there. That's why Paradise was hollering at me, about the things that's going on up there. So there's a lot that's going on. No, Jared, I want to holler at you though. I know you've been involved on a political side. I know you're involved in the 2004 National Hip Hop Political Convention. So I guess when we come back, we can talk a little bit more about just the political side of where hip hop kind of, we kind of imploded.
Yeah.
When Rosa and Cynthia ran and we fronted, we kind of imploded. So how do we get kind of back, or where can we go next with that?
All right,
No doubt.
we come back on Renegade Culture.
Do around this piece.
Elvis was a hero to most, but he never meant shit to me. You see, straight up racist. The sucker was simple and plain.
Fuck him in your way.
Word up.
Little black and
Culture.
proud. And hype is an amp.
Most of my heroes on the
Piano
piano
stamp.
stamps.
No
All right,
doubt.
all right, y'all can cut
Including
that shit.
Malcolm. You know what I'm saying?
Malcolm
speaking
was
of
on the stamp, man.
They put Malcolm on the
Later
stamp.
on.
and
Family put him on the
They
stamp.
some low down.
Oh,
Was it family that did it?
yeah, it was the family.
Okay,
Yeah, calm the
not
fuck
the
down.
family, but still, I'm not gonna say.
Although
nothing
we
about
don't
family.
think that was a good political move
I
on
don't
their
think it
part.
was a
Don't say it
good
like that.
political move either.
But yo, as we were getting back into hip hop, shit is off the rails here. Y'all don't need to know.
Yes,
Renegade
don't worry about
As
it.
we was getting back into sort of hip hop in the 90s and our influences and Malcolm kind of like reaching that new generation, There also was a time period where it seemed like the industry, which profited off of that shit too, but also saw it as maybe a danger and sort of did a counterpoint to it. So Jack, can you talk a little bit about when hip hop politically started reaching its demise?
Well, I think actually there's a nice parallel to what we were talking about with Malcolm, where there's this classic panel that I still have the tape of somewhere with John Henrik Clarke, Amiri Baraka, and Dhoruba bin Wahad, where they point out where they were criticizing the film before it even came out because they had seen the script, and they were pointing out the fact that the film that Warner Brothers was seeking and actually come out and said that they wanted to rebrand Malcolm X to be a logo akin or marketing a product akin to the Batman and the Simpsons.
Whoa.
Wait, Jared,
So
Jared,
that's why.
did you say, because what you just said was so, before you even go there, you just said Dr. John Henrik Clarke, Amiri Baraka, and Dhoruba. Now, I knew all of these people. And for you to say that, I'm not familiar with this video. This is something that we had to bring back up. Please rewind that.
Now I have the audio cassette, and I didn't even mention it. Also, there was the late great Alambe Brath. So, and they had gotten a version of the screenplay for the film before the film. So this was maybe late '91, I think, maybe before the film came out. And they were talking about how they had tried to intervene with Spike to say, look, there's certain things we see in the script that need to be adjusted. You can't, you got to fix this. And one of the points that they raised, I believe it was Brath that pointed it out. He pulled out an article and was talking about how Warner Brothers had gotten involved. Like their goal was to make their money, was to turn Malcolm X into a brand akin to The Simpsons and Batman, who were also their product.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So that's why, I mean, that's what they were attempting to do, and that's why the film ends up doing what it does. But I think that the parallel here is the same with hip hop, where, for those of us who remember, hip hop had to fight for its, justify its presence, its place. It had to, struggle for its, legitimacy. And one of the things that ended up happening was the system itself said, look, okay, fine. If y'all want to do this rap thing and this hip hop thing, we will get involved. We'll co-opt it. We'll push it in certain directions. We'll suppress certain politics and promote others. So by the time we get to where I think we want to get to, talk about with these hip hop political conventions and whatnot, the politics had been, from my humble vantage point, co-opted much like our broader politics, where there was a potential for a threatening independent black electoral political party akin to what Malcolm and others had been advocating, had turned into a hip-hop block in support of whatever Democratic Party candidate was being promoted to us. And that's what I saw happening in '04, and that for me was a wrap for hip-hop and politics as a movement, that this whole thing that I had always been critical of hip-hop as a nation, and hip-hop as some sort of independent entity away from black people that had created it, was a mistake. And it was co-opted, in many ways that I and others who were paying attention could have and did easily predict. So,
what you just said is such a, for those of you who are familiar, for those folks who are familiar with the brothers that you're speaking on, you know what I mean? First of all, it's a dynamic combination. And when you're criticized by those particular individuals, you know what I mean? You fucking up. I'm gonna just say that, you know what I'm saying? One or two of them is one thing. But when you talk about Dr. John Henrik Clarke, Alambe Brath, who for all practical purposes, when you talk about the whole Black is Beautiful movement, and you talk about our culture from that particular angle, that's like the forerunner, the godfather when you talk about the 60s. And then you talk about Amiri and our Comrade Dhoruba, who will be on Black Power Media on Sunday for the Black Liberation Army joint. When I first met Minister Server, I remember being on a panel with Professor Griff, Bilal Sunni Ali, shout out to Bilal Sunni Ali, who is a Black Panther veteran, and also who was one of the members of the Midnight Band with Gil Scott-Heron.
No doubt.
Gil Scott-Heron just won the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame piece, or just was inducted.
Yeah.
But I remember one of the criticisms I had with our brother Minister Server right here was around the question of whether hip hop was a culture itself. You know what I mean? And I was so hardcore on, look, fuck anything outside of African liberation. And at that particular time, due to the industry version of hip hop, because now we understand that hip hop is bigger than the quote unquote industry. You understand what I'm saying? You know, I was mad defensive and Griff as well. So we kind of like bumped heads with Server in the first joint. I'm like, I don't know who
They tried to ambush me.
Yeah.
They tried to ambush me, yo.
I'm like, I don't know who the fuck this dude
Griff,
think he is.
Griff and Kalonji. Now, I already knew Griff, but I didn't know who Kalonji was, right?
Yeah.
But they was on some team up like, fuck all that hip hop. We blackity shit. And I was like, yo, hip hop is the blackest thing going. We African. We're not just black, we African. You know what I'm saying? So fuck what the industry's doing. We got to make sure that we reclaim the culture and add it on regardless of what the industry does. Now, Kalonji and Griff was, of course, end up coming around to the wisdom of Minister Server later on. You know what I'm saying? Understanding the whole connection of it. But in all seriousness, you know, during those times, it's like we have to make sure that regardless of what's going on with the corporation, that we keep the culture intact. That's always my thing.
But it's
like,
hard to do. I mean, I think the struggle becomes the corporations are so dominant.
Sure it is. Sure it is.
And
Yeah,
I think that's part of it. That's always
that's
part
the
of the
ongoing
dilemma.
battle, period, though.
Yeah,
right?
that's always a dilemma because you had Spike who you wanted to jump in.
Yeah, no, but wasn't it like the NWA meeting when they got together with NWA and was like, yo, we got to push forward this nigga. And that was like the demise of the native tongue and that whole era when they was talking about, you know, knowledge of self and stuff like that.
But even before that, because folks like to blame NWA on the whole gangster rap tip, right? But before that, you had Colors, the movie, that predated NWA. And Colors itself, for many of us who was on the East Coast, and I think we talked about this in the past episode, it introduced us to the whole gang culture. Because in the East Coast, that shit wasn't flying.
Yeah.
Motherfucker come talking about and we had little gangs in little street organizations.
You had gangs and
Like the
but they were
D-Steps
local.
in Brooklyn.
Yeah, Jelly Stompers. You had all that kind of shit, but it
LKs
wasn't
and
like
all that, but
it
it wasn't
wasn't like
about
it
colors.
taking the whole. Yeah, it wasn't taking over the whole city. Everybody wasn't joining that shit to be like
Right. Full streets and
cool or
shit like
down
that.
and all that kind of
Right.
stuff. Yeah.
Right.
But I was gonna jump in real quick and say about the Spike movie because you know Spike is basically a marketer, right? Spike will market anything. In fact, I used to say like because they were around at the same time period, the way Madonna marketed sex, Spike marketed race, right? And Spike, you know, in those times in Brooklyn, he had the store in Fort Greene where he would sell anything he could from his movies in that store.
X-jackets.
Everything was for
$400 a
sale.
pop, right.
So you knew when Spike did his thing that in some ways it wasn't like the top of the mountain. It was like something coming down to the valley. You knew that was going to be the end of something because when we talk about that movie, I think as has been pointed out before, there's nothing about Malcolm's international politics. There's hardly a mention about sort of his radical critiques of capitalism. It's basically this militant versus these other militants, and then the government is watching behind and they're doing some stuff. But you get no sort of full range of who Malcolm was and what he was struggling with and against in that movie, and it just became this kind of. And then I always thought that the story was even that well told, to be honest, in terms of Spike's movie making. So
Right, but keep in mind the thing about Spike, for the masses who didn't have political education, it was a blessing. So you talk about even like with Bill Cosby with the whole Hillman College and all that. You know what I mean? Ushering in the whole HBCUs and all that type of stuff. If you don't know anything and you're just searching for blackness, we got to keep in mind the context of the era as well. You know what I'm saying? We're talking about an era where when you looked into an encyclopedia or you went to the library or whatever, Malcolm might have had a paragraph. The Black Panther Party might have had a paragraph. Now, Spike Lee, indeed, what he did is he took the information that he garnered and used that shit and turned it into a capitalist venture. You know what I'm saying? When it comes to folks like Denzel, I would argue that indeed it was a watered down version of who we know as El-Haj Malik Shabazz, but we cannot deny the fact that, like the ear doctor said, there are folks who their first introduction to Malcolm was through Denzel's version or Spike Lee's version of El-Hajj Malik Shabazz. So the thing is, although that we understand the politics, we understand the role of the state, we understand why they would even fund a Spike Lee, so on and so forth. To the masses, this is the this is Bible. This is revelation to them.
I'm gonna let Jared jump in first. I got a response to that, but I want Jared to jump in because he might say what I want to say anyway.
Okay, well, he speak for you.
But he might.
Well,
Light skin to light skin.
I don't know. I mean,
Alan
you
L.
know, to the extent I understand where you're headed, I mean, I don't agree that first of all, one of the points that was raised on that panel that I mentioned, first of all, the beauty of it, one of the things I remember beautifully was that Dr. Clark and Dhoruba disagreed with each other on whether Malcolm was headed towards or away from Elijah Muhammad at the point where he first was exiled or kicked out of the group. So I only bring that up to say that it was beautiful to be able to hear these legends, these giants disagree with each other, you know, and to do it with a level of respect. But I don't agree generally with the idea that the presentation of Spike's movie helped, you know, spread Malcolm's, an awareness of Malcolm that led to some sort of increased consciousness around Malcolm and his politics. In fact, I think, as they pointed out on that panel, the goal with the film, and I think it worked, was to diminish the almost natural rise of Malcolm's importance that was being pushed through, and at the time, more autonomous and sovereign hip hop. And popular culture, or I shouldn't say popular culture, but culture driven from the bottom up by Black and brown people who were reclaiming Malcolm on their own. The Spike movie was Warner Brothers' attempt to suppress that natural rising of consciousness among the people of Malcolm, to say, well, if you're going to like Malcolm, well, we'll give you the version of Malcolm that we want you to have, which is why it takes 90 minutes into the film before you see him transition from Detroit Red into the Malcolm that became the threat. The last thing I'll say very quickly is you get more of the accurate Malcolm politically in terms of commercial films in Will Smith's Ali than you do in Spike's Malcolm X, because there you see the internationalism, the Pan-Africanism of Malcolm in Will Smith's film that you don't see at all in several hours of a Spike Lee film. There's almost no discussion of his internationalism, his radicalism, or his threat to the state. So,
point of clarity.
Anyway, I'll just
point of clarity.
Yeah.
I don't.
Robert, rules of order and shit. I was going next. What the fuck?
Oh,
you
my
get points of clarity, man?
bad. I just want to clarify this real quick, and I'm done. I'm not saying that the rise of politics came from that. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying the introduction, because of the fact that awareness of the fact that he exists. That's all I'm saying. I don't agree with the film at all. I agree with you as far as like the attempt to water down and smother out the flames of Malcolm itself. I'm not saying from a political perspective. I'm saying that I don't think that there is a debate when it comes to the fact that more people became aware that Malcolm existed, and not only existed, but there are people, I would argue, that actually decided, like, you know what? Oh, I like what I saw. Let me look into Malcolm more.
Right,
just like what you said.
I don't agree with that.
Okay, well, you have the ear doctor here.
Well, that's just like the comic book nerds that knew about Black Panther and Luke Cage before then, but didn't know about them until the movie came out. So then that got them to start reading comic books.
Yeah, but so the idea though is not so much that the notoriety doesn't even matter as much as whether or not the movie or the instrument that's being used is flattening the politics, so that you look at them as these either larger than life characters or these fictional characters, just like the movies that are coming out now. It's not like people in droves are running out to be Black Panthers just because they saw a movie about Black Panther. Like we had this one incident where we were doing this protest in front of this house, which was being sold for this astronomical price. And then this woman who was selling the price, a Black woman, she was a real estate agent, and she came out and she was like, you know what? I like Fred Hampton. I agree with Fred Hampton's politics. It's like, you don't know shit about Fred Hampton. You know what I mean? Right. Just because you see a movie about something, just because you see a movie about something, it doesn't mean that you've now taken on the real politics of that. What you see now is the character that Hollywood has presented to you as to what that person was like or should be like or was modeled. But it doesn't mean that you've introduced yourself into the world of radical organizing. And I think the problem is when mainstream Hollywood or entertainment or these corporations take on these images of Blackness, they constantly and always, not just constantly, always choose to take the radical spirit out of them, because it's only through that they can allow you to have our heroes, right? It's the thing that Lenin talked about.
Right.
The dead hero will be castrated. The dead radical revolutionary will be castrated by mainstream in order to give it back to you in a way which is acceptable for you to take and for you to say like, oh, I got these pictures up, but it doesn't mean you change the situation and the culture of your community and stuff like that.
Gentlemen,
So-
I agree with you.
Well, you can't let me have the last words. I
No,
think
no,
we gotta go.
no, because
of what? Because
I got to clarify this shit.
We got to clarify.
My point is this right here: as an organizer, as a freedom fighter, okay, I agree with every last thing you're saying, but we cannot deny there are
Am I the
people
one that froze?
You froze? You froze now. There are people that come along that learn. Yui said that people learn through inspiration and observation and inspiration and observation. No, I'm messing it up.
Perspiration?
Aspiration.
Aspiration?
Aspiration. Hold up. Anyway,
Clinical psychology?
I'm messing it up. My point is this right here. As an organizer, it is our task, it is our duty. If a motherfucker is telling a story and they're not telling it correctly, it is our duty to come along and say, look, I know you like the movie, but this is what the deal is. There are people that come through to rallies and protests because of the fact that they might think that, you know what, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I don't like what they did to George Floyd. You know what I'm saying? And then you as an organizer say, look, this ain't about George Floyd. This is about white supremacy. It's about domination. It's about capitalism. It's order today. It's not about an individual. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm not saying that Hollywood's not going to play its role and do its part. I'm not bigging up the movie. I'm just saying if a motherfucker is presenting something, it is your job to go politicize the masses. If we win one person over, that's one revolutionary that we didn't have before.
Well,
we're talking about, hold on.
No. First, I would let the guest get the last word before we go.
But what I'm saying, as an organizer, as a revolutionary, as a freedom fighter, it is your job to politicize the masses. It is not Spike Lee's job. It is not Warner Brothers' job.
Right.
Fuck them. That's irrelevant. The fact that it is a piece of propaganda that's being used by the state, that is Malcolm is our hero.
Yeah, but
Malcolm,
the state.
hold on, Malcolm is not their hero.
Now you're just filibustering.
No,
It's
I'm not.
somebody
Malcolm
else's
is not
turn.
their-
Let somebody else talk.
Let me finish. Malcolm is not their fucking hero. How are you gonna let somebody else tell your story and sit back and talk about they didn't tell it right? That's
Well,
crazy.
no. The idea is that the very fact that they're telling the story, they're going to tell it wrong.
So what? It's your job to
I'm
tell
sorry,
it right.
It's my turn now, right?
Right, but it's your job to tell it right.
No. The thing is not to give their
It's not your
story
job to tell
any
it right?
credit whatsoever. Let's not act like they're helping us by making the movie.
I'm not giving them that. I'm
You
not
are
saying
giving them
that at
credit.
all.
You're saying they're
I'm not
politicizing
saying
more
that.
people.
I'm not.
Jared, we're going to
never
let you
said-
one second.
No, I never
Jared,
said
we're going to
that.
let you
No,
end the
I'm not going to
debate.
let you get away with that.
No, nobody's going to let you get away with nothing.
I'm never.
Jared, can we let our guest get the last word?
Fuck
Let our
that.
guest get the last word.
Hey, listen, I'm never saying that they're doing anything to politicize anybody.
You just did say that.
No, I
You
did
said
not
it's
say that.
exposure.
No, I didn't. I'm saying, understand what I'm saying. You're not going to tell me what I said. I'm saying to the people that if the state, if their propaganda machine is falsely defining our narrative, if they're falsely defining who we are, it is our job to step in and say, no, this is bullshit. And since you're watching this shit, this is the reality of it. It's not the Hollywood version.
Nobody
It's not
disagrees with that part.
And I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm not saying.
You gave the film credit for something.
I did not give them
We definitely
credit.
disagree on that.
No. I'm not
Anyway,
giving credit.
Jared, you got the last word on this. Go ahead.
Look, it's a complicated thing, but my point is that the rise of Malcolm within our community's consciousness was happening already. The film did not help it; it helped suppress it. So Kalonji, for every one person that you might think the film or films like it helped bring over to the revolution, it is also suppressing hundreds and thousands of others whose only understanding of Malcolm is coming through a Warner Brothers defined version. So they think of Malcolm as the version that we see in the film, which is the version that doesn't tell us almost anything about the Malcolm that ended, that was assassinated by the state. So I'm just saying that the film is here to make our job that already exists pre and after the film to organize our community. It's here to make our job harder. That's all I'm trying to say.
But it's still our job. We're revolutionaries.
We never lost the job yet.
Right, but we have
But
to
on
do
that
our
note,
job.
because we're going way over, we can fight part 2 next
Yeah,
week.
it's all
Gary,
good.
we want to thank you for coming on, Renegade Culture, as always. Great discussion, great show. We didn't get to some of the stuff on the hip hop,
convention.
but we're gonna come back and talk about that on another show. So thank you, Jazz, so much. Renegade Culture, we'll be right back.
Thank you for coming on. Fuck the film. Walk this way, talk this way. What's happening, Renegade Coach in the building?
Give me
Jump
a,
shaking.
okay. I'm saying a little Aerosmith on there. You know
I'm
what I'm
running.
saying?
This is Aerosmith. He in the building.
Nah,
Anyway.
I'm DMC, son. I'm DMC. DMC
my
was
bad.
always the better rapper, B.
Oh, was he?
Wasn't he?
You violate, man. Suck
Violate.
it. DMC better than Run?
Come on, man.
I don't know about that, my G.
Well, we got a hip hop guest on, so we're gonna ask him that question.
We're gonna ask
in a
him
few
that
seconds.
question.
You know what I'm saying?
got a story for
We got on
Yo.
the one and the only Jawz of Life.
Fuck y'all know about that.
Yo.
We got a little bio for the Jawz of Life,
Yeah,
Minister.
man. Yo, Jawz of Life paints masterpieces with his words as he weaves tales of experience and everyday occurrences. His lyrical diversity embodies his character, Jawz, as he provides positive information and inspiration for spiritually challenged background. His mission is simple yet profound: to be a powerful, legendary entertainer who uses talents in hip-hop and speaks life to those in need. Jawz of Life.
Oh, that was good.
What up, Renegade?
He must really like you because he be fucking up everything else.
He does.
That's my man
Or
for
it's a
now.
serious-
I told you, he wrote it.
That's what it is. It might be some serious payola this week, because last week, shout out to the last 3 artists Server had on here.
His cousin, his nephew, his niece.
Yeah, and his son.
And his
I
son.
believe in nepotism.
Like, when you start rapping? Today. But anyway,
So, Run DMC.
Yeah.
Who's the favorite, Run or DMC?
I'm gonna have to roll with DMC, man.
Thank you very much.
Oh, come on.
just not gonna hate on you.
Just cause I'm a little biased, you know, I had a chance to meet him or whatever, and that was an excellent experience.
Was this doing the throat thing or?
No, it was kind of like right in between. Like it was as he was going through it. Quick story about that. One day I was DJ Hurricane. Shout out to Hurricane, was my acting
Big
manager.
up Hurricane.
Okay.
And he called me, man, and went to the studio and walked in and saw him sitting on the couch, you know, in the A room. I was like, wow, you know, that's DMC. You know what I'm saying? Kind of just blew me back. And you know, we in Atlanta, we don't get starstruck like that, man. We see people all the time, but that's DMC. It's like seeing
Yeah,
LeBron.
it's a legend, yeah.
So,
It's a whole nother program.
Right. So actually, he pulled up a beat, said you got something, you know, for the rhyme. I was like, I can get something, you know. Sat down, rolled a little bit, jumped in the booth, spit it, and the song never came out because of the voice situation. But that whole weekend, man, I think I was the first Uber driver, because like DMC didn't have a way around town. Wow.
Oh, you got to drive him around?
Oh yeah, no, I didn't have to, but I volunteered to.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's DMC. So I'm riding down 20, man. I'm looking like, that's DMC in my front seat. You know what I'm saying? So I took him to Benihana, wherever he wanted to go, man. It was just like on me that weekend, so it was cool.
So how long you been in the rap game, son?
My first show was at MJQ, October 31st, Halloween, 1999.
Shout out to MJQ.
Yeah.
MJQ.
Yeah, man. So I've been doing it a minute. Actually, started rhyming back in college, and went to Alcorn State down in Longman, Mississippi.
yeah.
They had nothing to do with play baseball and write rhymes, so
Word.
that's how I started.
Man, that's real dope, man. We've been hearing your movement, for lack of better words, for years. You know what I'm saying? We appreciate the fact that you're one of the authentic, homegrown ATL artists. You know what I mean?
Appreciate it,
And when you talk about folks like DMC, it's a beautiful thing because of the fact that a lot of folks don't pay homage to. I mean, when you talk about Run DMC, for us,
Right.
if you're talking about a holy trinity of hip hop, they definitely
Yeah.
They
one
got
of
me,
those.
yeah.
They changed the era.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
We was talking about Run DMC before we stepped on the game today, and one of the things that we were saying that when Run DMC came out, we thought there would never be another hip hop group as dope as Run DMC.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because
Yeah.
it changed the whole thing.
Yeah.
But with you, you've been rolling since '99.
Yeah.
That
Professionally.
Professionally.
Yeah.
I mean that right there is that's heavy duty. Because we're talking about right now at this particular point, 22 years in the game, something of that nature.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
How has that been? You know what I'm saying? Been in Atlanta.
Oh man, it's been It's been a great experience, man, just because, you know, to be able to see and come through that evolution of the South.
True,
you know. Dungeon family, shout out to my brethren, second generation Dungeonese.
Yeah,
Big
Dungeon
V,
V.
vision in the building.
So
V.
you know, was able to see those guys, like, you know, come up, and then everybody started coming up. You know what I'm saying? As far as the Southern artists. So it's been great, man. First album won Hip Hop Artist of the Year in 2001 here.
Oh,
Nice.
First breath.
Yeah.
Then I was signed to Budweiser, went on a little Budweiser tour, True Music Live tour.
True indeed.
Shot my first video. Actually, shot my first video in Bangkok, Trinidad. With no budget,
okay.
you know, no nothing. They just had some people that invested in me, sent me over there, said, man, they need to hear you. You know, so it's just been an independent experience, man, that I can't throw away. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's in me.
You said something very important because of the fact that outside of Atlanta, I don't think a lot of people know about second generation Dungeon fam. You talk about second generation Dungeon fam.
Right.
You talking about folks like a Drifter Bell. You talking about my man Visions, folks like that and whatnot.
Yeah,
Big V.
Dungeonese, that's Dungeonese, yeah. Then you got, you know, your second generation Killer Mike.
King Malachi.
Slim Calhoun.
Word,
You know what I'm saying?
word.
So it's just a big tree. It's
Yeah.
just a big tree, man.
Yeah.
And it's just different branches, but everybody got the same spirit.
So you got an
tell us
album.
about that.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
I was gonna
yeah.
say you got an album coming out called The Swarm, or is
It's
it out?
actually out now, everywhere now.
Well,
Yeah.
tell us about the
Songs,
album a little
EP.
bit.
It's just I'm Jawz of Life, but I actually broke this one down to Jawz because a lot of people, you know, I'm like Minister Server read out on the bio. You know, I do a lot of soul touching, I'm conscious MC, whatever. But this one, you also sometimes you gotta step back and let them know you got the bars too. You know what I'm saying? So the shark, that's where the whole Jawz, Jawz come in, man. So yeah, this one it's called The Swarm. It's just like, yo, I'm still here, I'm still coming.
Cool.
You know what I mean?
All right, so we be supporting the show. We got a
Word.
bold question.
Indeed. I mean, this bowl right here, man.
What's
This
up,
is the second generation bowl.
True, that's true. Very important. Very
We had a whole nother bowl for those of you that watch Renegade Culture. Initially, we had my man, the Air Doc. Shout out to the Air Doc, our producer. He had he had his grandmother candy dish for years, and then all of a sudden, nigga dropped the bowl. You know what I'm saying? So he had to go to Harlem.
Harlem?
Not Harlem, my bad.
My bad.
He
The
went to
hallway.
Chinatown.
My bad.
And he came back with this wonton soup bowl and shit, which looked like a goddamn.
That look like one I saw in Bangkok, you know?
It might have been and shit.
He might have been in Bangkok.
He might have been.
Else, but that's another discussion.
He looked like he was in
That's on the
Bangkok.
podcast.
Banging cock. Anyway, in this bowl, man, we have like probably about how many questions here, Doc?
400.
Why don't you find out and give him the question in the book?
Oh, nigga, hate
Goddamn.
questions.
Oh, say, rah, like a dungeon dragon.
Anyway, we got about 1,000 questions. You reach inside,
All right.
find one of these motherfuckers. You got to read in braille.
All right, what album can you play all the way to the end with no fast forward? Oh man. Just one?
Ooh.
Sounds serious.
Well,
You say Alexander O'Neal.
Let me think.
What?
Mine is the purple tape, the Cuban Links, only built for Cuban Links.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with Jay-Z, The Blueprint.
Oh, yeah.
That's one that was a solid album
Illmatic.
all the way through.
Illmatic.
Yeah.
Man said Illmatic.
Yeah. What you gonna say?
Okay, me, I'm gonna say Street Songs, Rick James.
Wow. Okay.
Give it to me.
Go there real quick. Now, I mean, one of the most important songs on that joint is Mr. Policeman. I seen you in my neighborhood. You was up to no good. You know what I mean? He's talking about shooting down the cat in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
One of the most political songs that Rick James had.
Maybe the only
Across the
political
mainstream.
song.
Exactly. I mean, Rick James is a wild motherfucker. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Shout out to Paul Mooney. Speaking of Rick James, Dave Chappelle. You know what I mean? R.I.P. to Paul Mooney. But go ahead.
That's Rick James,
Yeah,
bitch.
man.
Rick James, bitch.
So we're gonna come back. My man Jawz of Life is gonna break it down for us on Renegade Culture. We want to thank y'all for coming out. Renegade.
Yeah. Renegade Culture. Thanks for having life. Jawz of, let's get into it. Swarm's out now. Left a comment that he missed me on the soulful beats. So I grabbed my beats and soul, shout out to the streets. I'm cool with these thugs and the essential workers. All family matters and that is word to Urkel. Royalty is purple, old life yellow. Jawz got his groove back, I'm a male stellar. flicking cigarettes and walking from the blaze fire. Preacher told me you dope, but he preaching to the choir. I'm still hungry, give me the bill for last supper. Foundation red clay, I should have been a splash brother. Sweet Georgia's peach, preachers trying to help a brother. I got some tricks up the sleeve, I ain't told another. Cover her with cover and then prep lover. Stain the game saucy, love what she wear, tougher. Old school, hubba bubba chewer, hell with newer. Started to spit like y'all, but nah, we need fewer. Dirty but worthy, beautiful things fall in sewer. I got a friend that's a Jew, he can't get no Jewer. Summertime, color tan, wintertime, Kahlua. That's a little brighter, write a verse on God's approval. Not a gambling man, not really into scratch-offs. 2020 slick Rick with the patch off. I love bankroll, screen door, latch off. The opposite of Kawhi Leonard when the DJ spin it. Not a shy guy, not a sale in him. I own up to my mistakes while most of y'all rent them. I get tired of speaking life, I'm about to cuss again. I pray and check up on B-Russ, I'm a real friend. 1998, grab pen, I began. Comanche Records flop, we took one to the chin. I could've quit, but I'm a hashtag Harper Boys. Went straight back to studio and killed some more noise. Yeah, and that's turned out to be my first breath. Classic album, I'ma say so my lamb self. Yeah. Y'all can get your hands up, give me some energy here. Yeah. The hook go like this. Don't let this clean version fool you, boy, I'm dirty. Ain't never been no follower, I'm too assertive. You played out like it cursive, I printed still here. No neighbors on my land, out here watching still dear. Ain't no apologizing, ain't no way I'm sorry. Told them to call me Big Squid, I ain't your little calamari. The mind is futuristic, heart still Atari. Combination of greatness, I'm kinda big and pocky. Over 40 now, just wanna be relatable. So down to earth that my casket's biodegradable. If I can reach one youth with truth, baby, I have won. You got a pecan with them, you cannot go pecan. I started this for fun, it's brought champ many blessings. I homeschool rappers and let them go after testing. Of course I feed them first, sit down and serve the verse. I'm Crawford Longborn, that nullifies Atlanta's curse. Decatur Savior player, heard of Jawz of Life? He'll shut your club down, come back and rock an open mic. Determined as Satan with the passion of Christ. I'm on the road now, your boy done shot a lot of dice. Hey, I introduced Jasmine to the sticky rice. Remember that line I said, I'm Christian Dolphin nice, huh? Yeah, this is Paloma of the Swarm. I'm here with Renegade Culture, Jawz of Life with the Z. Get them up. Don't let this clean version fool you, boy, I'm dirty. Ain't never been no follower, I'm too assertive. You played out like it cursive, I printed still here. No neighbors on my land, out you watching still dear. Yeah, appreciate y'all for having me, man. Feel good. Hey, the Swarm out now. The Swarm, I'm coming for y'all with bars, baby. Bars, baby. That's all we do around here. Shout out, man. Appreciate y'all. Love.